presentation to ask questions. And if you feel that you have an urgent question to pop it up, I will not block you from asking it. So at first, so what is Azure Bicep? Azure Bicep, it's a simple declarative language to provision Azure infrastructure. So basically, Microsoft has created a new language which help us in order to be able to develop rapidly and in a simple way our infrastructure as code and push this code to provision Azure resources. So it aimed to considerably simplify our authoring experience while providing the same set of ARM template features. I believe those who work with the ARM templates will know what I mean, since the JSON format and JSON syntax is so complex. Actually, the JSON was not made to be used by humans. It was made to be essentially for machines. So thus, it has a much complex, simpler syntax, and it will take time to be mastered. So Bicep, in contrary, Bicep is designed to be simple as possible, so everyone can easily start using it. And we will see this in the demo later. So Bicep actually, it has an abstraction layer to over ARM and ARM templates. So by this I mean everything that you can do in ARM templates, you can do with Bicep. So it's a 1-1 pairing with ARM templates. So there's nothing that you cannot do in ARM and you can do in Bicep. However, there are slight differences that makes Bicep much powerful from a development perspective. Since with ARM, the way we used to do it was so complicated. But from features perspective, they are the same. So by this I mean also we should note that all resource types, for example, when we say resource types that are in a private preview, whether they are in private preview, public preview, and general availability, these all resource types, they are accessible by Bicep day 0. So we have a day 0 here availability to deploy using this new language, as if we are deploying with ARM templates, which is very important for us, and very important, and it makes a lot of difference between using an infrastructure as code language, another DSL language, like saying like Terraform or any other language that requires a provider. You know that in this context, we should wait for the new provider to come out and support the new resource types. And there are some types that are not available in with the provider directly because they are still in public preview or private preview. So this is a very important thing to consider. So actually, what happens behind the scene, how Bicep works, as we see in this simple diagram that is on the screen. So what is represented here, we have a Bicep representation, and this representation consider our Bicep files. So let's say we develop our Bicep files and we are deploying Bicep to Azure, but actually under the hood, what is happening, there is a kind of compilation on the fly from Bicep code representation to JSON ARM template representation, and then these templates are pushed to Azure. So yes, here we're still using ARM templates, but we are not developing the ARM templates ourselves. So I guess in the future, and the aim of Microsoft here, which we should note, and this is what we call new generation ARM templates, or with the future of ARM templates, is that they are pushing us, or pushing the architects or the DevOps or the people to start using this simple declarative language instead of using ARM templates. But ARM templates are not being removed. and we will be directly and always interacting with Azure ARM in the same way that we use with ARM templates. Actually, this is very important also to take into consideration and understand from a function point of view, because this compilation in the earlier Bicep versions of Bicep. Now we are, by the way, Bicep is in the version 0.4. In the earlier version of Bicep, the Bicep compilation was not automatic. We should we had to compile the files manually to JSON ARM templates and push these files to Azure. But with the version 0.3 and above, this has changed, and now the Bicep compiler, the Bicep CLI, it will allow us to compile automatically the files without the need to see what is going under the hoods and push these files to Azure. So for now, do we have any questions for until this point?
No, thanks. It's clear for me. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. So let's see a bit how the deployment process works. So we talked about that we have an abstraction layer and we develop our files in Bicep language, and then we push these files to Azure. And we learned that we have some kind of compilation on the fly that turns these files to ARM template. But how actually we deploy? How can we deploy the code to Azure? And here we have a good news. For me, it's a good news because we have two options to deploy, like many languages. So the deployment process is divided in two sections. So first of all, we develop the code. We create bicep.bicep extension files, which are regular files that can be created with any editor with the extension.bicep. And we put the code, the Bicep code, inside these files. And after saving these files locally on our machines, we deploy the Bicep to Azure, either by using the Azure CLI. Using the Azure CLI, we need the version 2.20 and above, or Azure PowerShell 5.6 and above. And we use the same deployment commands that we use with ARM templates. So like in PowerShell, we used to use new-az resource group deployment, or to perform deployment on the resource group level, or new-az subscription deployment to perform a deployment on the subscription level. And also in the AZ CLI, we have AZ deployment group command and AZ deployment subscription sub command. So these commands, most of us are familiar with these commands, and whether we are new or we used to use this command, I believe the history of using the same commands we are not required to learn new ways to deploy, makes things much simpler and easier for us to onboard with this. So this is quite good and powerful at the same time, and I guess they did a good job with this. Actually, we thought that they will come up with a new streamline dedicated to deployment for the Bicep. But now, since things are clearer with the 0.4 version, we are pretty sure that this is the way that Microsoft is going, by using one entry point for the infrastructure as code to Azure, rather than having multiple independent languages and support these languages independently. Here we will have a synchronized support between ARM templates and Bicep, which allows us to not worry about new versioning, at upcoming challenges, whether this function exists in ARM template and does not exist in Bicep. So that's a pretty very good thing to consider. And actually, this is very important when you are deploying on a scale in an enterprise environment, and the changes there or the requirement are complicated. So I guess it's clear for you, my only and single attendant. It is a private session. So
it's like a private lesson.
Yeah. So you're lucky, huh? That's not that doesn't come often. That doesn't happen often. So
yeah, it's clear. I want to see what this Bicep language look for, because I know I ran templates and it's quite a pain.
Yeah. All right. So if you have, sorry, I forgot to mention, if you have any questions you would like to ask in French, I don't have a problem to answer in French also. I speak both languages, but I prefer to present in English. So you can speak also in French, and we can communicate in French. I don't have a problem. Okay.
D'accord. Très bien. Merci.
So what do we need to start with Bicep? So actually, we don't need too much things. We need the Azure CLI version 2.0 or later, or the Azure PowerShell module 5.6 or later. There is a slight difference between both modules, both utilities. Sorry, the Azure CLI actually it has an optional feature, or like it was shipped already with the Bicep CLI embedded within the Azure CLI. So you don't need to install the Bicep CLI independently to be able to use Azure CLI to perform Bicep deployment or some actions of Bicep. So what does that mean? That means that whenever you update also the Azure CLI, you will be updating the Bicep commands within the Azure CLI directly. In contrary of Bicep on Azure PowerShell. With Azure PowerShell 5.6, they support Bicep because we are running the new -az resource group command. However, there are no commands especially for Bicep that are embedded or built in within the Azure PowerShell module. For this, we need to install Bicep CLIs independently on your Windows machine. You can do this by installing the Bicep module on PowerShell, or whether installing the Bicep CLI manually. There are some kind of installers. There are many ways to install this. If you go to github.com/azure/bicep, which is the official documentation of Bicep, and I will try to share in the chat. I'll try to share in the chat. Let me copy the link. There is a link for the installation directly. Installation link for the utilities. So this way you will be able to getting the link, just a second. Okay, so that's the link. I will pop it up in the chat. Okay, so this link, this will take you directly to the installation page of the Bicep tools. Okay, so back to the utilities. I was saying that we need the Azure CLI, the Azure PowerShell module, the Bicep CLI, and optionally we need the Bicep VS Code extension. I advise you and I recommend, if you are using VS Code, you should definitely use the extension of the VS Code extension of Bicep. Microsoft has done a very good and well job with this. I will show it to you. I will show it to you in the demo, and actually it is very easy to use and develop this language using this extension of VS Code. So let's see Bicep in action, what we are all waiting for. Okay, and for this, I will. How can I share? Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Sorry, I need to turn off again the. Okay. Okay, let me. Okay. Okay, I'll turn off a little bit the presentation, and I'm sharing now my screen. Please confirm if you can see. Can you see my? Can you still see my screen? You still see? You can see? Can you still see my Visual Studio Code?
No, I didn't see your screen.
Okay, let me just again kick off the sharing. I guess that I somehow. Okay. Okay. What about right now?
Yeah, it's good.
You're seeing actually which screen? Okay, this is the right screen. All right. So now you're seeing Visual Studio Code.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's start. Okay, I will create a new folder. I will call it, for example, Cloud West. Cloud West. Bicep. Okay. Okay. I'll create a new file and create a new file and this file will be our first Bicep file. Okay. Okay. New file. I will call this Bicep file applan dot Bicep. Okay, so actually you will notice that quickly Visual Studio Code extension has identified the file as Bicep with the icon, and that just me. Okay. From the first point, I create a Bicep file. I have my Bicep file ready. So let's create. Let's say I want to create a website, and for this in Azure, I will need to create a app service plan. So there is a keyword called resource. I start by typing resource. So you see, you notice that I don't need to start by anything related to metadata, things like that, or what we used to do with ARM templates. So now I have my keyword resource. I will call this resource. I have another keyword which is called symbolic name. I will give it the symbolic name app plan. This is not the name of the resource that will be deployed. This is the symbolic name. It's a reference for the resource within our Bicep file. So let's say I want to add an app plan. Since app plans is there are server farms For example, I can directly type server farms, and I can see that quickly the extension is kicking off and the predictions are coming out, popping out, and just by hitting tab, I can get the resource type that I want. And there is a new thing here, which is different from ARM templates. There is the API version. It is appended directly to the resource type within the same line. I can select the API version that I want. So I hit equal. I have an object here, and now I can fill the properties for the app plan that I need to feed in the file before deploying that. If I don't know the properties, I click Control Space, for example, on my keyboard. I have a new dialog that pop-ups. I can see the set of properties that are available for this type of resource. This type of resource will need a name. For example, I give it my demo app plan. It will need a location. I will give it a resource group. I will use here the resource group dot location function, and here I want to show you that we can use the same functions that are used in ARM templates. We don't need to learn new functions. Same functions that exist with ARM template are available with Bicep, which is also a very good thing, and makes our life much simpler than learning new commands, new functions. So that's pretty easy. I have a location, I said. Then I will give it a kind. I want it to be a Linux. So I have an SKU. It's an object also. I'll hit enter capacity family name. I'll choose the name. So let me check if we deploy. Okay. Name, I'll give it B1, for example. Okay, now I need to set one property. Properties. And it's also an object. We have a property called reserved. I will set it to true, as a Boolean true. So now I have a pretty ready Bicep file with a single resource, and which I can deploy. Let's see the compilation of this file and the result of this file in ARM template. So I have a command that I can run, which is Bicep build, and when I run a Bicep build, I can choose the applan.bicep file, for example. And actually, what this command does, it will generate the JSON file, which is the file in ARM template that we used to do, which is equal to the Bicep file that I have just created. So we see here that how much. Let me try to split the screen. So if we compare these files together, we see that the number of lines are not decreased. However, they are decreased much dramatically. However, what you can when you have a much complicated templates, you will see that number of characters are considerably decreased, and the noise of JSON noise, or everything that we call noise, like the codes, things like schema, content version, these things that we don't use actually, but we had to put it and include it in our JSON files. They don't exist anymore, and this is much readable for us. It is much readable. You can troubleshoot this very quickly rather than deploying than working with this file. So So for now, we created one resource, but most of the times we would like to make the resource, make our files or configuration more dynamic, like adding parameters or stuff like that. So how Bicep deal with these things? It's much easier than before. We can just use the keyword param. They have also reduced this. Let's say I want to create a param called SKU. It will be a string and equal b1. Okay, so like it is like I'm giving it a default value. This value is overwritable in my in the deployment command, but the default value, it's represented like that. I can have another parameter, for example, param let's say kind string. I will leave it empty. So that's how we define the parameters, and how we can use the parameters. It's much simpler than before. So what you have to do is only for example, if you want to use instead of name, I will use the SKU. I can directly, without mentioning parameters and brackets and everything around that was required, I can directly type the parameter that I want, and to use it directly in my file. I will also need an output, for example, if I want to refer because if I want to refer to this app plan to be used later with the website, I need the output of this app plan. And for the output, I can use the output definition, which we create within. We create a variable, and this variable will be used to extract the actual output of the ID of the app plan that we are doing. So, for example, here I can say my variable is app plan ID, for example, okay, which is a string, and it is which is string equal. It is equal. You see directly. I can refer to the app plan symbolic name again, and I can use ID. So I don't have to use the resource ID